As soon as Brad gets his hands on that terrorist, I guess it'll be case closed, huh?
Oh. You know of anything else he could be planning?
No. Nothing but the bombs. He's got his computer hidden away. I'm sure there's plenty of information on it.
Can you take me there? To his hideout?
Leave it to me.
Wow, Frank. All you had to say to Jesse was, I know Brad told you not to say anything, but ice cold, man. Hello again, and welcome back for part 4, and we only have 18 hours to go, so I'll get right into it. Once again, we're escorting Isabella, and even though we don't have to carry her this time, and the zombies are relatively light, trying to keep her abysmal AI moving towards the goal without getting stuck presents its own set of problems. Either way, she makes it there eventually.
Here it is. Let's go. It's no good. It's password protected. I'll try words we both might know. Family stuff. Things like that.
What's this cable?
It looks like part of a jamming device. I won't be able to disable it unless I log in.
Or I feel like you could just pull the wires out. I mean, I'm no expert, but that usually works. Whatever.
Frank, can you hear me? I found something interesting on a security feed from inside a store. Could you come back here? I need you to check it out.
Alright, I'm headed back now.
There's a lot of going from Carlito's hideout to the security room and back again at this part of the game, but it breaks the cutscenes up and it gives me a chance to restock my weapons and try out all the outfits. This one will be appropriate soon, trust me.
Take a look at this. The guy being dragged? I think it's Carlito.
You could be right. Where is this?
The basement of the North Plaza. Right in front of the butcher shop.
You could be right. You can see his face. That security camera is clearly in 1080p. You know, it's funny, until now you probably wouldn't even know there was a butcher shop in the game since we've had no reason to go there until now, but it certainly fits some of the themes we've seen so far.
A customer.
That guy over there. I mean, that meat?
Oh, this is good meat, huh? I just got it in here. It's fresh. You just wait right there, sir. In a moment, you can try the best ground meat you've ever tasted.
Whoa, ground? Wait a minute, listen. I had something else in mind.
Zombies are no good. I can't serve my customers spoiled meat like that. I have a reputation to uphold. Trust me, I'm a butcher. I've got the best meat in town.
Speaking of previous themes, Larry is pretty much the epitomization of the fat, ignorant, meat-eating American that Dr. Barnaby was talking about earlier. He sort of reminds me of Mr. Potsdam from Harvester now that I think about it. The guy even screams meat when he charges at you. As the largest character in the game by far, he's sort of a parallel to the general critique of consumerist overconsumption applied directly to food. I'm not quite sure how gorging on steak can make an Asian man look 8 feet tall, but maybe it's all the bovine growth hormone. Much like Steven's customers and Adam's laughter, he's clearly been driven mad by the zombies taking away something he loves. Loves a whole lot. He strikes a strangely jovial figure, however, and even if he's crazy, unlike any other psychopath in the game, Larry won't attack first, and will just mill around the shop until you strike the first blow, meaning Frank can't really argue self-defense on this one. However, killing Larry is the only way to stop him from grinding up Carlito, the mass murderer. Well, I guess it's best not to think about the morality too much. In all seriousness though, the game itself will analyse Larry for me in the next cutscene, so I won't labour the point. One thing that does seem strange is that there are free cartons of milk in the butcher shop to recover your health if you need them, but no actual meat pickups that Frank can consume, even though raw meat does exist elsewhere in the game. Perhaps that's a mercy to the player so as not to feel too much like Larry, who just scoops a handful of waste pink slime from the tubs around the store to recover health. That's not enough to save him though.
You're finished. It's over.
What about Isabella?
She's on our side now. She's checking out your computer right now.
My purpose in life has been to get revenge for what you people did to Santa Cabeza, to my hometown. Why? Why was your meat so much more important to you than human life? Why? Why did my people have to die to feed your fat bellies?
That doesn't excuse what you've done! But I promise, the Santa Cabeza story will be told. But I need the password. Hey! Hey! Stay with me! Give me the computer's password!
Hey. Aren't zombies great? I mean, all they do is eat, and eat, and eat, growing in number. Just like you good, red, white, and blue Americans. It's not over. Not yet.
Speak! Speak, damn it! What do you mean it's not over?
I'm sorry, Isabella. Give this to my sister.
Hey. Shit!
Now, this cutscene is very, very on the nose, but I absolutely love the fact that a message like this is expressed in a mass-market video game, and it's one of the things that made me want to talk about Dead Rising in the first place. Saying that though, it doesn't really need much analysis, since I think everyone can probably get the point here. It does make me shake my head that some people still dismiss the series, or video games in general, as being devoid of political meaning. I've gotten a decent amount of messages personally from people who can't understand why I would try to analyse the medium. Perhaps I can understand this sentiment from the 61-year-old Judge Richard Seaborg, but so many gamers themselves seem to have such low expectations of our shared hobby. I believe that we can and should demand more than just black and white fantasy stories and brainless set pieces. How many bad guys have we seen over the years that are driven by nothing more than some innate impulse to commit evil? While such people do exist, they're hardly the root cause of most human suffering. Carlito, like most real-life villains, is driven by his own form of morality, and I wish we could see more characters like him.
He's dead.
Oh.
All he worried about was you in the end. But damn it! He died without telling me a damn thing. You know, I thought he was terrorist scum. But... in the end, all he really cared about was his sister. Here. He wanted you to have this.
Papa. Mama. Hacha, Mama.
Did you figure it out?
Pachamama. Mother Earth. Our parents said that a lot. The place we lived, Santa Cabeza, was blessed with nature. Please believe me when I say my brother didn't want all this. He only wanted to live in peace in Santa Cabeza.
I might be alone in finding this story moving, but I hope that I'm not, and just to reiterate my last point, I don't see why we have to choose between entertaining gameplay and a compelling story, as the writers of walking simulators like Dear Esther would have us believe. In my mind, Dead Rising is just one of many games that have both.
Frank, the emergency line's been freed up. I'll give headquarters a call. Hang on.
DHS headquarters.
This is Agent Jessica McCartney. We have an emergency situation.
With no more mission markers, it's a bit confusing what you should be doing in the next 13 hours, but I'll be following the steps to get the Ture ending. That is, I mean the true ending, but in the Xbox 360 achievements, that's how Capcom spelled it. T-U-R-E. It's sort of a shame they fixed that for the PC version, actually. Anyway, since Jessie has some good news, we should go see her, but before we even get out of North Plaza...
Frank, it's over. HQ's decided to ignore us.
What? What do you mean, ignore us?
I contacted headquarters, but the government has decided to deny all knowledge of what happened here.
Remember when I said
Special
Brad seemed much
forces
too benevolent about wanting
will
to
arrive
uncover
for
the
cleanup
truth
at
behind the
midnight.
outbreak instead of...
They'll take everyone out. Zombies.
Remember when I said Brad
People,
seemed much too benevolent about wanting
everyone.
to... Ah, remember when I said Brad seemed much too benevolent about wanting to uncover the truth behind the outbreak instead of suppress it? This is much more like it. Something that I think is interesting here is that unlike in most fiction, this isn't getting blamed on a rogue general or some conspiracy inside the CIA or Red Skull, but just the actual US government themselves. I'll get back to this shortly, but for now it's even more important to go over to check on Jessie. I'm guessing she's realised by now that Brad isn't coming back for her either, and she definitely doesn't look too happy about being abandoned. Only 30 minutes later though, we're not able to get back before another cutscene.
Jessica McCartney? Talk about your close calls. You contacted us just in time. Your boss thought we should have a talk with you before the operation begins. We'll be taking you into custody. If you sign an agreement to keep your mouth shut about all this, you'll be free to go.
Well, I guess Dr. Barnaby did bite her after all. Rest in peace, Jessie, even if you didn't really do anything in the game.
Jessie?
I can believe that she could overpower one Special Forces goon by surprise, but I'm not sure what the other guy's excuse was. I mean, he did know how to fire his rifle, right? I suppose a note is the perfect way for Otis to say goodbye, considering he can't talk, but I can't help but think it's a bit of a Deus Ex Machina for him to be a helicopter pilot too. That said, it would be a bit of a kick in the teeth if all the optional survivors you took the effort to rescue got executed by a death squad, so it's nice to know that they get away whether you do the cheer ending or not. Speaking of endings, it's time to lay Jessie to rest, but before we do, it's time to get the Snuff Shot J achievement by taking a photo.
Perfect.
For fuck's sake, Capcom, what's the matter with you? Yeah, she's got booze, but she's also dead, and she has some guy's larynx in her stomach. Jesus Christ, Japan, you need an intervention.
Good.
Yeah, horror, that's more like it. Now I'm pissed, and I'm more than ready to take the fight to the cleanup crew. And on that note, it's midnight. These guys might have similar AI to the true iCult members, but they're sure as hell a lot more dangerous. Crossing the mall is a lot more difficult, but it's great to get some variety now that we're drawing into the final stages of the game, and the Special Forces also drop the game's best firearm, which makes short work of the zombies, but is strangely ineffective against the exterminators themselves. The best way to take them down is charging in with a melee weapon, but beware getting stun-locked by multiple assault rifles. It's going to be a long night, and our supporting cast is quickly dwindling to nothing, so we'd better fight our way back to check on Isabella.
The military. They'll come, won't they? It's just like Santa Cabeza. The government wants to cover this up too.
Of course, Isabella is right that governments rarely, if ever, admit their mistakes, but I couldn't really find any evidence of any real-life large-scale military operations conducted solely to destroy evidence of the truth. Then again, that might signify nothing other than that they worked. In April, the United States accused Russia of orchestrating a bombing run on a hospital that was treating Syrian gas attack victims to cover up evidence, and the Russian government has certainly been responsible for highly questionable covert action in Ukraine and elsewhere, but it's equally possible that the US is simply spinning their own story. In the sophisticated propaganda of the modern age, covering up the truth is much more often done through manipulation of the media than by attempting to physically erase the evidence of events. The closest real-world parallel I can think of to the dramatic science fiction atrocity of a zombie outbreak is the nuclear weapons, and the bombing of Hiroshima had its own renegade Frank West-type reporter. Wilfred Burchett was described by fellow journalist John Pilger as a war correspondent of the old school. He relished his scoops and would endure almost anything to get them, but reporting was not enough for him. If he saw an act of injustice, he would personally try to remedy it. Burchett entered Japan attached to the US Navy, but while his compatriots loyally covered the surrender proceedings, this white Australian slipped out of the safety of the Allied occupation zone and set off alone for Hiroshima on a train packed with resentful Japanese officers, armed only with a Japanese phrasebook and a .45 revolver. He'd covered wars, after all. When he got there, he was shocked not only by the scale of the devastation, but also by the atomic plague, a mysterious illness which had killed thousands, including those who had not even been in this city when the bomb had dropped. The doctors at Hiroshima's only surviving hospital could do little more than ease the horrific suffering of the dying, even as they themselves succumbed to the disease, and they begged Burchett to make the Americans send the antidote since Japan had surrendered. They could not know, of course, that there wasn't one. His report was smuggled out of the country by Morse code and published in the Daily Express, but by the time he returned to Yokohama, the American administration was denying his story, claiming that the doctors were simply incompetent and that he'd fallen victim to Japanese propaganda. Another reporter, who had loyally sent his story of 25,000 words on Nagasaki back to the US through General MacArthur's office, found later that it had been destroyed, and the American administration quickly enforced censorship. But the damage had already been done, and by November they were forced to admit the truth about radiation sickness, which shattered America's vision of nuclear weapons as a triumph of technology that would end brutality. In Hiroshima, a courageous lone reporter could go outside the system and report the facts, but in the modern age, can we expect the same? In the modern world, legal media censorship is largely non-existent, but the press is less trusted than ever. Instead of trying to erase all negative reporting, the government simply exercises their informal relationships with the small handful of corporations that control 95% of media output, and are able to control what stories enter the mainstream narrative and how. The supposed proliferation of free information over the internet has simply become an echo chamber where big businesses can control what stories are seen by millions, and which are forgotten at the bottom of an obscure search algorithm. I know this has become a rant again, but Dead Rising is partly about journalism, and I just thought the idea of government stormtroopers coming to eliminate the evidence of the outbreak was so quaint, even if it is a great story device and a typical zombie movie cliché. Wilfred Burchett was able to evade censorship, but a story that is simply pushed to the bottom of the news agenda does not have the same power. To paraphrase Noam Chomsky, it's only the most basic propaganda that works through force. It's only in a society where the people believe that they are free that they can be most effectively controlled. To get back to gameplay, what to do in the next 8 or so hours is up to the player. Even though Frank recommends staying in Carlito's hideout until the special forces are done, where's the fun in that? You might as well mess with them while you can and get some EXP at the same time, plus unlock the achievements that require you to kill 10 of them, which I think we've got by now, to empty a machine gun with 100% accuracy, which is easier than it sounds, since the bovine carcasses in the butcher shop count as targets for some reason, or to fight the helicopter which replaces the convict's jeep in the park. There's a lot of danger, so if you're not prepared, you're fairly likely to get yourself taken out, but again the Spec Ops emulate the true eye cultists. You're taken to a Black Hawk and stripped down once again, but escaping doesn't prove too difficult. Then again, if you get caught, it'll strip a few hours from the timer, which is useful if you just want to hurry things along. Either way though, make sure you leave enough time to get back to Carlito's hideout before 10 AM. After a night's hard work, the killing is finally done. What, did they forget a voice actor for that guy? He must be related to Otis. No idea who that is, but I guess it doesn't really matter now. It seems harsh to leave Isabella behind, but for whatever reason she doesn't want to come, and you can't make her, so all that's left to do is to head on up to the helipad. By the way, you have to talk to Isabella after 10 AM to get the cheer ending, something which the game never tells you. So if you save the game right next to the helipad and just before the chopper arrives without talking to her, like I did the first time I played as a kid, you'll have to replay the whole game to get the cheer ending. Remind me why I like this game so much again. As you can see, the mall is eerily quiet and has become a charnel house, with the upbeat music providing a nice juxtaposition. A lot of people have said that abandoned malls are creepy places, and it's certainly strange to see this temple of consumerism still operating without its usual flock of followers. You have 2 hours, which is just enough time to take a last wander through and pick out what outfit you want to end the game in, and now all that's left to do is wait.
Well, I'll be damned. He's still alive. That son of a bitch made it. That must mean he got his scoop. I can't wait to get my share of the take. Woo! Yeah! All right, you just hang tight, buddy. I'm on my way. Huh?
Hey! 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 I'm over here!
I see you, buddy. I see you. Yeah, I'm on my way. Yeah, yeah, you did it. You did it. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that was a surprisingly bleak ending, even for a zombie game. I'm not sure I appreciate that kind of cliffhanger, and doesn't it make the whole game up till now kind of pointless? If you don't complete all of the story, you'll get a regular ending graded on the number of survivors you rescued, where the helicopter lands and Frank gets away just fine, so why is the cheer ending so dark? Okay, of course that's not really the end of the game, but it is the end of 72-hour mode. Ending A earns you access to overtime mode, where the cheer ending of the game can be found. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please rate, comment and subscribe, and if you really liked it, you can donate to my Patreon. See you next time.